And as you might have heard over the past few days, the dog's breakfast, also known as the Gillard government's mining tax, continues to go from bad to worse. Just to recap, they've been forced to admit they raised only $126 million in the first half rather than the $2 billion. Yes, $2 billion, less than 5%. And now everyone's joined the chorus of condemnation, but one man who has been the staunchest critic since the outset, the good Liberal senator from the great mining state of Western Australia, Senator Cormann from the centenary city of Canberra, Parliament House actually. Welcome to the show for 2013.
Yeah, good to be back, Janine.
And you'd have a bit of spring in your step. Who'd have thought you'd have Kevin Rudd on side? He's been taking pot shots today. Bill Shorten hardly endorsed it a lot. And Rob Oakeshott claimed he was duped. They're all moving to your side.
Well, Janine, eventually the truth comes out. The mining tax was always a bad tax. It was a bad tax which came out of a bad process. It is more complex, more distorting, less efficient, more costly to administer, more costly to comply with, and it doesn't raise any meaningful revenue when the Treasurer has already spent all of the money he thought it would raise and more. Surely, I mean, any chief financial officer of a publicly listed company who had come in more than 90% below target and below forecast in terms of one of his key revenue measures would have long been sacked.
OK, I was going to give you 60 seconds. You did it under that. I was going to say, here's your gloating time, but I thought that was very graciously done. But I do have to pick you up on one point. I don't want to spoil the party, but to say that, you know, it's a bit rough that the other lot have spent the money that they didn't get, your lot are going to get rid of the mining tax, so you'll have no revenue, and yet you're giving out the goodies in the increase in superannuation. So aren't you just as bad?
Well, absolutely not. As we've discussed on your show many times, the mining tax package, that is the revenue Wayne Swan thought it would raise, and all of the expenditure that he had attached to it, always left the budget worse off, even if it had raised what the government thought it would raise. What we have said is that we would scrap not only the mining tax, we would scrap all of the measures the Labor Party has attached to it, with the single exception of the increase in compulsory super from 9 to 12%.
OK, and just to clarify, how would you pay for that increase then if there's no revenue?
Well, I mean, obviously in the lead up to the next election we will be releasing our full costings and our budget forecasts. We will be doing that after the Treasury and the Finance Department have released the pre-election fiscal outlook, because we need to know what the objective information is about the budget. We don't trust Wayne Swan's budget numbers, because if you look at his past track record, he always gets his numbers wrong.
But hold on, aren't his budget numbers based on Treasury? Look, I just want to pick that up, because you're on...
No, that's a very important point.
OK, you tell us.
Well, the budget documents, all of the budget documents, the budget MAIFO and so on, other than the pre-election fiscal outlook, are the government's documents. They are the Treasurer's documents. Treasury and Finance provide input, and it's ultimately the government which decides what they accept and what they don't. The only document which will give us proper, objective information about the true state of the budget is the pre-election and fiscal outlook, which is released by the Secretaries of Treasury and the Finance Department.
Well, I like the fact you're on message, you're unified, unlike some people, you know, in your economic team. You are repeating what Joe Hockey has come out and said today, that confirmed that you will not be releasing your costings until you get that MAIFO. Now, there was some hope...
Well, the coalition economic team, you know, is obviously totally focused and very united in our efforts to restore our public finances.
And you take that lap of honour.
We've been going through a methodical process now for a number of years.
OK, well, let me just ask on that. There's a point. You've told me on this show that you're ready to go, you're primed for that election, you've had meetings, you're going through the numbers. I understand you need the budget predictions, but surely you could release some of it without the exact numbers, just the general policies. I mean, we're talking a very large...
We've already released more than 40-odd policies, and we'll continue to release policies. But the point is this, like, we cannot responsibly make final judgments on the policy prioritisation and the funding arrangements until we know what the true state of the budget is. I mean, that's just common sense. I mean, the Labor Party can jump up and down as much as they like. We're not going to be distracted from our timetable, which we think is the responsible course of action.
OK, but hold on, can I just check what the timetable is? As I understand, the report will come out, is it in July? or
No,
August?
Well, it depends on when the election is going to be.
Well, you know when the election's going to be, September 14. Now, when is the MAEFO due?
Well, okay. Well, if the election is on September 14, then the writs are issued by August the 12th. Then, under the Charter of Budget Honesty, the Secretaries of Finance and Treasury will have to release the pre-election fiscal outlook by the 22nd of August. Now, to go back to your question
give people
earlier,
a long time to go through it, though, does it? I mean, I know you're playing politics, but...
Well, no, but Janine, to go back to your question, you said, well, if you're ready, why not release it now? Well, if the Prime Minister called the election now, we would be in a position now to present our budget forecast. But
without having that mid-year economic forecast. How could you do that? You said you have to wait for it.
The thing is, it would be completely irresponsible for us to finalise our pre-election costings until such time as we've got the most accurate, independently verified, objective data about
except
the
if she calls it before when you'd have to. Okay. Just looking at, you have had a flurry of press releases today, not just over the mining tax. You've been calling on your counterparts, your opposite number in Western Australia, to get their act together and say what they're going to do. You've had a whack at Senator Penny Wong, your opposite number today. Now, what are you trying to get Penny Wong to do? It sort of gets lost.
Here is the Labor Party giving us lectures about releasing pre-election costings now, even though we haven't got proper data. And here she has been sitting on the monthly financial statements for the months of November and December since mid-January and the second week, the 7th of February. Like, essentially, I mean, you would remember that in the shadow of Christmas, the Treasurer Wayne Swan snuck out to fess up that despite 500-odd promises by him and the Prime Minister that 2012-13 would be the first Labor surplus budget in more than 20 years, that it wasn't going to be, that this was going to be yet another deficit budget, the 5th deficit budget by Wayne Swan in a row. And yet here we know that Penny Wong has had updated information about the state of the finances, the state of the public finances on her desk, and she's been sitting on it, and she's waiting for Parliament to rise before she's going to release it by the end of this week. Why would she not, in the normal course of events, as she normally would have, released those monthly financial statements in a more timely fashion? Clearly, they've still got something to hide. Clearly, they don't want us to know the true state of the budget while Parliament is still sitting.
Okay, just back to the mining tax, because, you know, I know we both love talking about the mining tax, but it is the story of the moment. Let's look at what's happened today and put it in the context of the amazing political, what's going on with the election and the seems to be instability in the Labor Party. What did you make, for example, of Kevin Rudd's very snide comments, sort of dumping it in the Wayne Swan's lap, this debacle?
Well, I mean, Kevin Rudd is absolutely right. Julia Gillard and
Did you ever think you'd say those words about the man who brought in the first mining tax?
Well, if you can let me finish, like, sure. Like, I mean, I'm not surprised at all that Kevin Rudd would be very bitter about what happened to him about the mining tax, because right from the word go, this is an absolute mess of the Treasurer's making. Wayne Swan is squarely responsible for this, but of course back in June 2010 it was Kevin Rudd who lost his job over the mining tax when Wayne Swan got a promotion to the position of Deputy Prime Minister. So I'm not surprised at all that he is somewhat bitter about that.
Okay,
but
were you surprised?
I mean, the Labor Party is an absolute shambles over the mining tax. We've had
I'd say they're a shambles. To be fair, Senator Cormann.
Minister of State Gary Gray tell us that the mining tax was outstanding and working really well.
No,
we had the Prime Minister and Labor Senator Doug Cummins saying it needs to be ramped up. We've had Joel Fitzgibbon, the Chief Government Whip, tell us that the mining tax is complex, inefficient, untidy, and that it needs to be changed. I mean, these are my words. I mean, we've got a conga line of Labor members of Parliament coming on board, joining me in my criticism of the mining tax. I mean, we've been saying these things for a long time.
I did say that in the introduction, Senator. As I said, I allowed you. I think this is fairly able to gloat. I think you've actually been restrained. But one you didn't mention in there, which I wondered if you were. You said you weren't surprised by Kevin Rudd and the others, the conga line, as you put it. What about Rob Oakeshott coming out today claiming he was duped on the mining tax? Was that a surprise to you?
I mean, the thing is, none of them were duped because, I mean, they now are all trying to say that this is a surprise. Well, none of it is a surprise. All of the messes that have been created by the mining tax, the mess with the interaction with state royalties, the mess out of the way that depreciation works and works to reduce mining tax revenue. All of these problems were pointed out fairly and squarely in our Senate Mining Tax Inquiry report. All of these problems were predictable and indeed predicted. And if the Treasurer and the Prime Minister had looked more closely at the very thorough work that was done by the Senate Mining Tax Inquiry, they would have been able to fix some of these issues a long time ago. But of course, this tax is so bad, it can't be fixed. It needs to be scrapped.
Yes, and that's exactly what you're planning to do. Let's just talk in a more general sense. We've got 6 months of this, the general view, I mean, as you say, they seem to be in disarray. You said they're disarray over the mining tax. There seems to be a lot of rats leaving a sinking ship. There seems to be a lot of instability anywhere. What's the best part for you at the moment?
Well, I mean, look, we obviously continue to have a job of holding a bad government to account, but at the same time, though, we are just getting on with the job of developing policy, of getting our plans ready to be an effective government after the 14th of September, should people across Australia give us their confidence. In my own portfolio, I've been making announcements about our plans in superannuation,
yes, you've been very
our plans
busy
to provide certainty and stability for Australians saving to achieve a self-funded retirement. We're just getting on with the policy
I know,
agenda.
and I'm sorry we've run out of time that we can't get to superannuation. You're right at the front line, aren't you? Mining tax, superannuation. You're a busy man. No wonder there's a flurry of press releases coming, but I know you're the man to do it. Lovely to talk to you again, and I suspect you'll be back this year.
I'll be back.
Thank you, Senator Cormann. We'll talk to you again soon. There you go. And after this short break,